At 22, Mindy Morgenstern's sudden silence, no calls, no messages, left her friends filled with dread. What started as a simple check-in led them to a horrific discovery. Mindy had been brutally murdered. The crime scene, chilling and violent, revealed a dark tale of terror. As detectives unraveled the clues, they were stunned by the killer's violent past and the shocking way he managed to secure a job as a prison guard. Who was Mindy Morgenstern? Who could have committed such a crime? Lies, betrayal, and DNA evidence would reveal the devastating truth. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today, we'll discuss the events that occurred in 2006 in North Dakota. Born on April 29, 1984 in Bogota, Colombia, Mindy Morgenstern's early life was shaped by the love of a family who embraced her as their own. Adopted by Eunice and Larry Morgenstern, farmers from New Salem, North Dakota, Mindy was the youngest of 4 children. Eunice and Larry had already raised their biological daughter, Rebecca, but their dream was always to have a large family. Their first adoption was Michael, a boy they welcomed into their home, and 10 years later, they adopted April, a girl from Colombia. But their family was still incomplete. When they learned that April had a younger sister, Mindy, they knew their family was destined to grow once more. Mindy's childhood was idyllic, filled with the open skies of the farm where she thrived, riding horses, playing basketball, and even driving a tractor. After high school, Mindy left the peaceful life of New Salem behind and headed to Valley City to embrace the excitement of college life. She was a bright, outgoing spirit who quickly found her place among new friends. Juggling school with a job as a waitress at a local restaurant, it seemed as though the best years of her life were just beginning. Yet in a cruel twist of fate, everything Mindy had worked for, the dreams, the promise of a bright future, was about to be shattered, and no one could have predicted the terrifying darkness that loomed ahead. On the chilling afternoon of September 13th, 2 friends, Toni Baumann and Danielle Holster, became increasingly anxious as the hours ticked by without any word from their close friend, Mindy Morgenstern. It was completely out of character for Mindy to go silent, especially considering the struggles she'd faced with her health, battling multiple sclerosis. Their concern for her welfare grew, and the nagging feeling that something was terribly wrong pushed them to take action. Without hesitation, they made their way to her apartment, hoping to find her well. Arriving at the door, they knocked, but no response came. An eerie stillness that only heightened their unease. When Toni tried the door handle, it turned easily. It wasn't even locked. With growing dread, they stepped inside, unaware of the nightmare that awaited them. The moment they crossed the threshold, the air thickened with an overwhelming sense of something being horribly amiss. 2 steps in, they froze. There, at their feet, lay Mindy, her lifeless body sprawled across the floor. A cold rush of panic gripped them as their eyes were drawn to something wrapped around her neck. The horror was unmistakable. Someone had taken her life. Word of Mindy's death spread, and before long, the apartment was swarming with officers and forensic investigators. As the detectives moved through the apartment, they couldn't ignore the heavy scent of pine sol hanging in the air, an unnerving detail that raised immediate questions. Had the killer tried to cover up their tracks? The grim details only deepened the mystery. A belt was found tightly wound around Mindy's neck, a crude instrument of murder, and even more disturbing, evidence of a violent struggle. A knife, so violently thrust into her throat that the blade had snapped off the handle. The chilling nature of the crime was beginning to unfold, but the question remained: who could do something so horrific to such a kind soul? Everything took a dark and mysterious turn as the detectives began to analyze the crime scene. The first signs led them to a chilling theory. The killer had used a powerful cleaning agent to erase any trace of evidence. However, fortunately, some crucial clues remained. Forensic experts found skin particles under Mindy's left hand, proving she fought back with all her strength, scratching at her attacker. But the real puzzle was the motive behind the attack. A robbery gone wrong? No. Mindy's purse was still clutched tightly in her right hand. Her phone and wallet were next to her, cash untouched. Her jewelry and other valuables remained undisturbed. It was clear that the killer wasn't after her belongings. Another strange detail stood out. There was a laundry basket next to her body, as if she had been attacked the moment she walked in, arms full of clean clothes. The front door showed no signs of forced entry. This suggested that the attacker either knew Mindy or had entered the apartment right after her. The next morning, the detectives faced their most painful task, breaking the devastating news to the Morgenstern family. The shock was unbearable. Mindy's parents, siblings, and friends were in complete disbelief. Who could have done this? Mindy was well-liked, with no enemies and no known run-ins with the law. But there was more. Toni and Danielle, the friends who discovered Mindy's body, weren't the only ones at the scene. A man who lived on the same floor had rushed to Mindy's apartment after hearing their screams. He checked Mindy's pulse and coldly declared she was dead. When questioned, he claimed to have used the back of his hand to check her pulse, ensuring he left no fingerprints on Mindy's wrist. His strange behavior and calm demeanor raised immediate suspicions. Was he simply a concerned neighbor, or was he the one responsible for the horrific crime? The detectives felt they were standing on the edge of uncovering a truth far more sinister than they had ever imagined. The man's name was Robert Lind. His hands were covered in fresh scratches, a detail that immediately raised suspicion. The authorities weren't about to overlook such a significant clue. They brought him into the station, their questions sharp and unyielding. But the more they dug into Robert Lind's background, the more unsettling it became. His criminal history emerged, and with it, a dark pattern of behavior that caught the investigators' attention. The interrogation took a new turn when they confronted him about the scratches on his hands. Calmly, he explained that they were from his work. Working with steel, he claimed, left him with cuts regularly. But the officers were far from satisfied. They pressed him further, demanding details on how he spent the day before Mindy's murder. He had been at work since 7 a.m., finishing his shift at 5:30 p.m. To his relief, his employer confirmed the alibi and further confirmed that his hands were often covered in abrasions from the job. Still, something didn't sit right. The alibi seemed too perfect, and investigators couldn't shake the nagging feeling that Lind might still be hiding something. Reluctantly, they asked for a DNA sample, which he provided without protest. The sample was sent to the lab, with hopes that it would confirm or destroy any connection to the crime scene. As they waited for the results, the investigators expanded their search. They spoke to all of Mindy's friends, but the answers were always the same. She had no enemies, no conflicts, and no reason to be a target. The case seemed to be growing colder until they turned their focus to her neighbors. Among them was Mo Gibbs, a seemingly ordinary corrections officer from Barnes County Jail. He was known to the detectives, and they decided to pay him a visit. With his access to inmates, he might have overheard something that could help crack the case. Mo Gibbs had a family. His wife and child lived next door to Mindy. He arrived at the station with his young child, who played innocently in the background while the officers zeroed in on their interview with Mo. The detectives knew this was their chance to uncover the truth. Mo answered their questions with a calm demeanor and stoic expression, but something about his answers didn't sit right. The investigators couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to him than he was letting on, and the truth was just beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered. As the investigators dug deeper into Mo's past, they uncovered a troubling pattern of deception. Though Mo had been upfront about his job and whereabouts, it became clear that he had hidden key details to make himself appear more innocent. At first, he passed their questioning without raising any alarms, but soon enough, cracks began to show in his story and in his character. To start with, Mo wasn't even his real name. His true identity was Glenn Dale Morgan Jr., a name he had changed years earlier. As investigators pieced together his past, they discovered Glenn's dark history. He wasn't just a corrections officer. He had once been an amateur boxer and briefly served in the Navy. But his military career had ended abruptly when he was arrested and convicted of attempted murder. He had been sentenced to 10 years, but unsurprisingly, his sentence was reduced and he served just 5 years in prison. The name change in 2005 seemed to be an effort to erase his violent past, distancing himself from his criminal history, and he had been successful in doing so. Even his wife didn't know the full extent of his past. But that was only the beginning. The deeper the investigators dug, the darker the secrets they uncovered. Mo had been married before, at just 18, to a woman named Tasha. Despite his conviction for attempted murder, Tasha stayed with him, but their marriage ended in 1997, shortly before his release. His second marriage to a woman named Melissa in 2002 lasted only 3 years. The shocking part, while still married to Melissa, 2 other women came forward, each claiming Mo owed them child support for children born in 2003. The authorities discovered that, over the years, at least 5 women had filed child support claims against Mo. But his web of lies didn't end there. After moving to North Dakota, he met Christina, his current partner. While Mo had admitted to his criminal background, he had failed to disclose the full extent of his past, including the attempted murder charge. On the day Mindy was murdered, Mo claimed he had been at work at the Barnes County Correctional Center until 7 a.m. before dropping Christina off at work between 12:30 and 12:40 p.m. But as investigators pieced together his tangled history, the question remained: was he telling the truth, or was he hiding something far more sinister? The turning point in this case came when Mo, unaware of the trouble ahead, went back home to pack his things. An autopsy revealed a chilling overlap. Mindy's time of death fell between 12:30 and 1:30 p.m., precisely when Mo had been near her location. But a real bombshell came next. Under her fingernails, traces of Mo's DNA were found. This wasn't just circumstantial evidence, it was a smoking gun. And as if the DNA wasn't damning enough, Mo's hands were covered in fresh cuts. His injury was a grim match to the violent struggle that ended Mindy's life. But Mo's troubles didn't end there. Under intense scrutiny, investigators uncovered a chilling link to a cold case from 2004 in Fargo, where his DNA matched a brutal sexual assault. Mo had voluntarily handed over his DNA to authorities, but it was now clear he had sealed his own fate. With every piece of evidence stacking up, his DNA, the proximity to the crime scene, the wounds on his hands, and a haunting history of criminal behavior, the detectives knew they had their man. On September 21st, 2006, Mo was arrested for first-degree murder with no bond set. But Mo wasn't ready to go down without a fight. Just 5 days later, he pled not guilty, and the trial began its bitter journey. And in a stunning twist, new charges piled on. 5 female inmates came forward, accusing Mo of sexually assaulting them while he was working at Barnes County Jail. The weight of these allegations was devastating. 6 more felony charges were added to his growing list. The case garnered such intense media attention that the trial was moved to mine it. As the trial began in 2007, the public and courtroom were on edge. After 23 hours of deliberation, the first jury was deadlocked. But the prosecution didn't back down. They painted Mo as a predatory monster who had attempted to assault Mindy, and when she fought back, he killed her to cover his tracks. His defense tried to discredit the DNA evidence, even claiming that fingerprints found at the scene didn't match Mo. But by October 2007, a retrial had taken place, and Mo was finally found guilty. The judge sentenced him to life, without the possibility of parole. Even as he stood convicted, Mo clung to his innocence. He sent his condolences to Mindy's family, offering a hollow apology. In a powerful moment in court, Mindy's mother spoke directly to Mo, forgiving him but never forgetting the pain he had caused. She also extended her sympathy to his own family, especially his children. Though Mo denied involvement in Mindy's death, he admitted his guilt in the cold case from Fargo and the multiple sexual assaults at the prison. The prosecution suggested Mo's actions were fueled by a deep, uncontrollable sexual addiction. One particularly disturbing detail came to light. One of the assaults at the prison had taken place on the very same day that Mindy was murdered. For these crimes, Mo was sentenced to additional terms of 12 and 15 years to run concurrently with his life sentence. As the story unfolded, those who knew Mo were stunned. He had been seen as a disciplined athlete, a man who cared for his children. But the truth that emerged was far darker. Now, Mo sits in the maximum security North Dakota State Penitentiary in Bismarck, serving his time at 51 years old. Despite the unimaginable pain Mindy's adoptive parents endured, they have found a shred of forgiveness. The journey for justice may have been long, but in the end, the truth triumphed. Mindy Morgan was laid to rest at the Serene Grace Cemetery in New Salem, just a stone's throw from the home where her adoptive family and siblings had lovingly raised her. While the brutal and senseless way she lost her life remains a tragic, unbearable wound, her family and friends are determined not to let the darkness of her death define her. They refuse to let the cruelty of that final moment overshadow the light she brought to the world. Her spirit, unbreakable, fierce, and full of love, shone brightly in everything she did. Her unwavering faith, a bond she shared deeply with her parents, radiated through her dreams of one day becoming a missionary, spreading compassion and kindness wherever she went. She was remembered for the joy she brought to every room, for the passion she poured into sports and music, and for her relentless strength to rise above any obstacle in her way. Though her death was a tragedy that shook her loved ones to their core, they somehow found the strength to forgive. To honor her, a heart-shaped memorial was erected at the corner of 9th Street Northeast and 5th Street Avenue Northeast. Her final tribute, a beacon of the good she gave to the world, forever standing tall in her memory, refusing to be consumed by the horror of her death. As for Mo, thankfully, he will never walk free again. But let's not forget, he didn't just take Mindy's life. He left a trail of victims in his wake, not only through murder, but through a horrifying pattern of sexual assault. How he managed to infiltrate a prison system just by changing his name is beyond baffling, proof that sometimes the systems meant to protect us are deeply flawed. And with that, folks, this is where our story ends for now. What do you think about this case? How does it make you feel? Let me know in the comments below. If there's a case you'd like us to dive into, feel free to share it with us. And if you found this video engaging, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to stay updated. Take care, stay safe, and we'll be back with more stories next time.